Hi everyone, I'm Debbie Roberts, owner and financial advisor at Property Apprentice. Join us today for the Week in Review, where I talk about current events for the everyday investor and home buyer. Before I start, I just want to say a special thank you to FeedSpot, who featured us in the top 100 New Zealand podcasts recently. Thank you very much. We do aim to please. Our topics for this week from the RNZ on the 15th of October. Consider tax breaks for KiwiSaver, international report says. Topic number 2 from New Zealand Financial Advisor on the 16th of October. Economists welcome RBNZ's cautious LVR easing amid housing restraint. Topic number 3 from Good Returns on the 14th of October. First home buyers take advantage of soft housing market. Fourth topic from One News on the 13th of October. Why inland revenue is taking money from bank accounts. And fifth topic for this week in review from interest.co.nz on the 16th of October. Residential building costs still increasing but slowed to 0.4% in the September quarter. So first up for this week in review from RNZ on the 15th of October. Consider tax breaks for KiwiSaver, international report says. New Zealand's combined retirement system, which includes New Zealand Super and KiwiSaver, has been globally ranked 17th out of 52 in the latest Mercer Global Pension Index. While the system earned high marks for integrity, receiving an A, it received a B for both adequacy, reflecting retirement income levels, and sustainability, covering affordability. The report's author, Tim Jenkins, stated that the country ranks in the top third of those surveyed, but its score for income adequacy is relatively low. He pointed out that while New Zealand Super is acceptable, KiwiSaver is below average because of its voluntary nature and low contribution rates, further noting that New Zealand is one of the few nations that does not provide tax concessions for retirement savings. To boost the system, the report outlines several key changes. It recommends increasing the level, coverage, and tax efficiency of KiwiSaver contributions. It also suggests introducing a minimum contribution or contribution credit for low-income people or those off work for caregiving purposes. The report advises focusing on retirement income as the primary purpose for KiwiSaver, improving the options for drawing down funds in retirement, and considering raising the age of eligibility for New Zealand Super. Jenkins stressed that while there were questions about New Zealand Super's long-term sustainability, New Zealand is not unique, as other countries face even more urgent issues. He concluded that there's a strong need to look at New Zealand Super and KiwiSaver as a unified package to address both adequacy and sustainability, suggesting that with KiwiSaver now 18 years old, the time is right to step back and reevaluate the entire system. Second topic for this week in review from New Zealand Financial Advisor on the 16th of October. Economists welcome RBNZ's cautious LVR easing amid housing restraint. The Reserve Bank of New Zealand, the RBNZ, has announced a plan to ease loan-to-value ratio restrictions, or LVR restrictions, starting from December 1st, a move widely viewed as a balanced adjustment to stabilise the market. The RBNZ will increase the amount banks can lend to borrowers with smaller deposits. For owner-occupiers, banks will soon be able to lend up to 25% of new loans to those with deposits below 20%. That's an increase from the current 20% limit. In other words, at the moment, 1 in 5 loans per bank per month can be to people with a low deposit, whereas with the new rule change, it'll be 1 in 4 loans per bank per month. For property investors, the share of new lending to those with deposits below 30% will increase to 10%, up from 5%. Acting Assistant Governor Angus McGregor stated that the change reflects the stabilising effects of the debt-to-income or DTI restrictions introduced last year. McGregor said that the timing is appropriate because house prices are within a sustainable range, mortgage lending growth is moderate, and the share of high-risk lending is low. He added that easier LVR settings will give banks more flexibility and improve access to credit, especially for first home buyers. Economists and industry leaders have broadly welcomed the decision, though they expect a limited impact on price growth. Infometrics economist Matthew Allman described the change as sensible, given that national house price inflation is only 0.2% annually. He believes that weak affordability and low investor returns will continue to curb demand and limit any significant price growth. Cotality chief property economist Calvin Davidson agreed, stating that both banks and owner-occupier borrowers are already operating well below existing LVR limits. He said that while investors might see a marginal benefit, the bigger drivers of the market will remain interest rates and the labour market. Finance Minister Nicola Willis said that the move will help more Kiwis to achieve home ownership. The New Zealand Property Investors Federation, NZPIF, also supported the change, with advocacy manager Matt Ball noting that the pragmatic adjustment will help people into homes and increase rental supply without causing a demand-led spike in property prices. My thoughts on this are that yes, it is a step in the right direction. However, I think that the Reserve Bank is still being a bit too cautious. I think they should lift the deposit restrictions for first home buyers, especially first home buyers who are using KiwiSaver, just to help them get their foot on the property ladder without the negative implications of borrowing high LVR loans. Topic number 3 from Good Returns on the 14th of October, first home buyers take advantage of soft housing market. In the first half of this year, the lending market saw steady growth, with banks issuing 60,249 new home loans, representing a 6% increase from the end of last year. Overall, the total value of all new home loans lent by banks increased by 5.3% to $24.4 billion. This activity contributed to a total of 1.4 million home loans lent to 1.2 million customers. The chief executive of the New Zealand Banking Association, Roger Beaumont, noted that it's encouraging to see customers continuing to manage their money well despite the challenging economic conditions. First home buyers are a strong presence in the market, accounting for 25% of the new home loans issued. The average mortgage taken out by this group was $507,690. That's a 3% increase. In contrast, the average value for all new home loans, including those for first home buyers, saw a slight decrease to $404,603. The association's chief executive says it's great to see first home buyers taking advantage of the property market and getting into their first home. Banks observed generally sound customer financial management. A significant 40.3% of home loan customers were paying more than their minimum repayments, and the percentage of customers who were behind on their repayments saw a slight decline to 1.5%. Customer stress indicators have also improved as applications for hardship status dropped by 26%, and the number of customers granted that status fell by 9.1%. Additionally, switching from principal and interest to interest-only repayment also dropped by 28%. In terms of rate preference, mortgage holders overwhelmingly favoured fixed interest rates, which represented 57.3% of all home loans. However, the proportion of loans on variable interest rates also increased by 6.5%, accounting for 22.1% of all home loans, with the remaining loans on a mix of fixed and variable rates. Beyond mortgages, Banking Insights showed that over 67% of credit card customers paid off their balances in full without incurring interest costs. Customer interactions also included banks receiving 6.3% fewer complaints and approximately 884,000 calls each month. Fourth topic for this week in review from One News on the 13th of October, why Inland Revenue is taking money from bank accounts. Shocking headline. Just like to point out the fact they're not just randomly taking money from individuals' bank accounts, but the Inland Revenue Department, the IRD, is significantly increasing its efforts to collect outstanding tax debt, which has led to thousands of direct deductions from customer bank accounts in recent months. An IR spokesperson, Rowan MacArthur, reported that since mid-June, the department sent out 16,500 notices about planned bank deductions, representing a 25% increase compared to the total notices sent out during the previous year. The Inland Revenue Department is targeting customers who've repeatedly failed to engage with the department, focusing on those where information suggests funds are available in their bank accounts to pay off existing debt. In other words, people have got the cash to pay it, they just have chosen not to, and they've chosen to ignore calls from the Inland Revenue. Between mid-June and September 30th, the IRD completed 8,181 deductions, recovering $17 million, with an additional 6,026 deductions in process that have collected $5.5 million. The spokesperson encouraged customers with tax debt to contact the department to set up instalment payment plans. Chartered Accountants Australia-New Zealand tax leader John Cuthbertson confirmed that tax debt has recently ballooned to $9.3 billion. He noted that the softly approach taken during the COVID years provided significant leeway, but recent government budgets have allocated funds specifically for the IRD to be more aggressive with audit and debt collection activities. Cuthbertson emphasised that some debt is very old, and the IRD is now trying to collect quickly. He added that the IRD has the power to apply for money to be taken from people's wages, and warned that it's in people's best interest to communicate and get on top of their debt early. Deloitte tax partner Robin Walker pointed out that the IRD typically sends advice about past due amounts and a warning letter before a deduction. She added that since the IRD's recent system upgrade, the department has access to information from a wider variety of sources, allowing it to be more proactive. The MyIR system also now more prominently displays tax debt when customers log in. Some accountants have voiced concerns, stating that some struggling businesses are given as little as a week's notice before money is taken, which is short notice, to be fair. But for the majority of people, like it said, it's old debt that is just being collected now. So, don't forget that tax is an obligation to the Inland Revenue Department. It's not your money. You can't keep it in a savings account and just hope that they're not going to come knocking on your door, because they will eventually, but they will call you or email you before they take it directly out of your bank account. Topic number 5 from interest.co.nz on the 16th of October. Residential building costs still increasing, but slowed to 0.4% in the September quarter. Residential building cost inflation's continuing to moderate, according to the Cordell Construction Cost Index produced by Cotality. The index, which tracks the top costs of building a standard single-storey brick and tile house, showed that total costs rose by only 0.4% in the September quarter, down from 0.6% in the previous quarter. The latest quarterly result is less than half the long-term quarterly average of 1%. Annual building cost inflation over the 12 months to September also declined sharply to 2%, which is less than half of the 4.1% long-term annual average. Cotality New Zealand Chief Property Economist Calvin Davidson said this slowdown reflects a market that has now worked through the extreme cost pressures and post-COVID bottlenecks experienced in 2021 and 2022. He noted that key components such as materials, which accounts for 50% of the cost, and wages, 40% of the cost, are now better supplied, and product pricing has become more predictable. While construction costs remain high in dollar terms, Davidson stated that the pace of change is much milder, which creates greater confidence for both builders and homeowners in budgeting and delivery. However, the costs of certain components still vary significantly, with plumbing costs up 7% and gas-related products up 2%, while bathroom fittings declined by 6%. The market's moving faster than ever, and this is your moment to get ahead. The Reserve Bank's just delivered a 50 basis point OCR cut, and while this is easing mortgage costs, the IRD is also aggressively pursuing $9.3 billion in tax debt, signalling a new zero-tolerance environment. Join me at one of our free events called How to Succeed with Property Investing. These events are all available online, so you can gain valuable insights and strategies tailored to today's market conditions, regardless of where you live, because they're all online. Whether you're an experienced investor or just getting started, this free session will equip you with the key tools and insights to help you make more confident, informed decisions. Don't miss out. Register today and take the next step towards achieving your financial success. At our free events, I'll also tell you more about how we could help you as a client to achieve your investing goals. So if you're interested in finding out more about how we can help you, visit propertyapprentice.co.nz today and register now. If you've already been to one of our free events and you'd like to know more about how we can help you on your journey, book a no obligation phone call or meeting with my husband, Paul Roberts, through our website, propertyapprentice.co.nz. Thanks for listening.